and delegates, with great joy and immense pleasure, I welcome you all. I feel privileged to extend my warm welcome to all presented here for the AICTE Training and Learning Academy's 1 week faculty development program on sustainable change management in Technical Institute for NEP 2020 implementation. I, Indrani Borkar, on the behalf of Department of Electrical Engineering, Government Engineering College Bilaspur, welcome you all in the second day's first session. Yesterday's sessions were informative and insightful. The renowned personalities from academia have shared their valuable thoughts on NEP 2020. Today also, in the first session, we are continuing with Dr. Manish Okade. Yesterday, he mentioned the holistic and multidisciplinary approach of NEP 2020. Today, he will be discussing other key areas of focus in NEP 2020, such as professional education, adult and lifelong learning, promotion of Indian languages, arts and culture, technology use and integration, online and digital education, and ensuring equitable use of technology. I welcome Dr. Manish Okade sir for address. He is an assistant professor in Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, National Institute of Technology, Rourkela since 2014. Welcome, sir.
So can I start?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So thank you, madam, for the introduction and welcome to the participants on the second day. As you can see, today I'm joining from my home. So yesterday you saw me from my room. Today you can see my home. So today, as Indrani madam already told, that we have covered certain sections like holistic, interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary things. So today we'll focus on the other key areas, how to make it happen. So those aspects. So what I'm doing is I'm starting sharing my screen. I'm putting my video in off mode due to bandwidth issues. So let me share my screen. So again, as we discussed earlier, so we will again have a interactive session. So I think you can, are you able to see my screen? Can one confirm?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
nice.
sir.
Great. So today we are going to start the other part, that is part 3. So before I could start, what is this 20, 21, 22? Means, can anybody guess this? Let's have interaction at the beginning. Did I do any typo that instead of writing 1, 2, 3, 4, I wrote 20, 21, 22? Is it a typo or what is it meaning by? So anybody?
Year, sir, maybe.
See, I have written 20 dot, 21 dot, 22 dot. Why did I write that?
Maybe these are the timelines to achieve the objective.
Okay, timelines. Anybody else?
Probably these are the serial numbers in that NEP document, which is that 66-page document. So this is point number 20th, 21st,
Yeah,
22nd, and
yeah,
all.
yeah. Yeah, as he rightly said, it is. So if you can just look yesterday what we have covered, I'll just go back. See here, part 2, higher education, I have written chapter 11, pages 36 to 38. Then I have written points 11.1 to 11.12 because this is higher education part 2. So now what we are going to cover is this part 3, other key areas. So if you go, as your friend rightly said, if you go to that document, that 66-page document, if you go, so it is listed under this 20 number of head, right? So under this 20, again, you have 20.1. So those recommendations we'll be talking today and how they are, what they are, etc. So basically, it is not a typo. It is intentionally put to make you understand that these sections are taken directly. See, I cannot create my own sections and tell you this because this is a policy which is already formulated. So we have to talk in a confined space. So I cannot be saying that my own things I cannot say. So I'll have necessarily to refer that particular document. So that 66-page document, so this talk or this series of talks that I have given yesterday and today is going to simplify the things for you to read. It is not that you can't read on your own and understand, but we'll put some perspectives, give you some examples to make you understand. So 2021, this 22, 23, whatever refers is in reference to that 66-page NEP finalized document, which is approved by the Union Cabinet. So among this, so I'll bring my marker here. So if you can see, you are the first, we are starting with this here, the professional education. So here, when I say professional education, so we will be talking about what the policy recommends. See, always you have to understand this particular NEP is a recommending body. It is not an implementing body. Implementing body, there are some other, so that will be talking. So yesterday there were some questions, how it is going to come up, what it is going to do, how it is going to get achieved. So today we are going to talk about that. But again, today we are going to refer multidisciplinary, holistic, all these words. So that is why yesterday's talk, I have just touched upon those aspects so that today there is a connection between what we did yesterday and today. So coming to this one by one, we will be dealing with these 5 points. I will be touching, because it's a very large document, I will be touching this Indian languages, arts and culture is self-understood. So I'll not be touching this much, right? So rest of the things again is important from our point of view, that 2021, 23 and 24 I'll be talking, because a lot of things are there. And as I already told, I cannot go more than 1.5 hours. So today also the talk would end at around 10:30. Right, so we'll take some 10 minutes of questions. So maximum I can go up till 10:40. So let's come to the first part of the talk, that is professional education. So when we say professional education, see again the same words are repeating whatever I have means told about yesterday. So that's why the yesterday's part was important, that we are going to talk about interdisciplinary things. So this thinking, whatever is there, interdisciplinary is important, right? So, and what is this professional education? Suppose someone, let's leave an engineer, because we are all from technical field. We are always talking about our field. Suppose there is a doctor. So what's the specialty of the doctor? Say, for example, he or she is a radiologist, right? So he or she is a ophthalmologist. So now if the radiologist or ophthalmologist thinks that that person can only learn or do the things to his or her profession, then that is not the correct thing. Radiologist again has to work interdisciplinary along with the technicians, because radiologist can only understand once the technician gives him or her the CT scans, MRIs, etc. So there you will require this something called interdisciplinary, because you will have to come out of your domain and think and be critical and try to understand, put the critical thinking into place. Right. So profession, what they are trying to say is professional education should not be confined in one's own specialty. I cannot say that I am a radiologist. I don't know what you do. You have to give me these. If you give me these images, then only I'm going to tell you. Answer is no. Right. So technology may evolve. Radiologists may have to relearn. So earlier days, X-rays are now replaced by full body scans, CT scans, where the entire body is going into the CT scan chamber. So one needs to evolve and say that I can think outside my profession. So if somebody comes to technology here, so suppose I am a computer science engineer, so I cannot say that I don't understand mechanical, right? So we will require, because finally my own things which are interdisciplinary, I will have to require it. See, the thermal part in mechanical is part of all the chip. So whatever computers have the chip, the thermal, the heat ratio, that has to be known for us so nobody lives in isolation. So that is why you see the engineering course was done such that the first year of engineering was common to all. So why was it done like that? So what was the meaning? The meaning was engineering student also learns mechanical, welding, carpentry. At the same time, a mechanical student also learns about computer programming. So then second, third, fourth year, we knew that it was specializing on your own, whatever you have chosen, the branch, whatever we call. But now that has gone away. Slowly we are going to get minor and major, as I was discussing earlier. So professional, what we try to say is professional and education cannot be standalone. So it is not only with regard to engineering or medical, you can also take agricultural universities. So that's what they have specially mentioned. India being an agrarian type of country, you cannot have agriculture staying alone, that university will only teach about which are the crops which are good, when to sow them, what are the climate conditions. No. Along with that, how to do drip irrigation, how to conserve water, right? So how to bring it, bring technicalities into it, bring less of wastage. Nowadays, IoT is coming. So can agricultural universities adopt these things? So they should become interdisciplinary and offer holistic education. So they cannot say that no, that is not my field. It is some engineer I will pay, and that person will come and do it. That's not the right approach. The approach would be to coexist along with other fields. Similarly, here they are recommending some technology parks, like we have incubation parks. They are going to recommend agricultural technological parks. See, finally, what do we do? Computers don't give us food, right? So our technology or our tablets, whatever we use to do our online classes, they don't offer us food. Finally, food is grown by the agriculturalist. So there we require to eat the food to live, right? So here we have to consider technology so that these the fields of agriculture, etc., are also equally developed. So this was not done earlier. Earlier it was that there was some agricultural universities or some institutes had some universities like earth science, etc., or some food engineering that is their lookout, or some CSIR labs are there which deal with food. So that is their lookout. I don't have to do. I am a computer science engineer or a mechanical engineer. I am going to do my job. So that should change. That's what they say that. So that should be accounting with our growing population. The food sufficiency should be seen. Climate change should be evolved, and the declining land productivity, because continuous use of pesticides. So nowadays we are going to some concept called organic farming, right? So in order to increase the land productivity, so because continuous use of herbicide, pesticide is degrading our existing land. So climate change, so these things one should always know out of their domain also. Maybe I am a technologist, but I should be aware of what is the world, what is the average temperature which is going on, that I should be aware. So this will be brought in professional education, so that it what it means. Similarly, if you take legal education is not like earlier that okay, there are some judges and there are some lawyers, you file a case. Not like that. Now legal things have changed. You are having computers coming in, you are having this fake news coming in. So so legal people also should be adopting best practices. So what this is what he says, I'm just underlining practices for embracing new technologies. So I write a mail to someone, say I start abusing someone over mail, right? So then that should is taken as a evidence in the court of law in current times. So somebody should know what is the IP address from where it generated. Did I really send it, or somebody hacked my computer to do it, right? So such kind of technology things which with cyber crime coming in, people modifying video content, audio content, people modifying image content to generate fake news. Such things should be brought into the professional education. Old paper trial is still there. It is not that it has gone, but it should, what they are saying is it should adopt and embrace new technologies. Similarly, health education, as I have already mentioned, I wouldn't like to touch this again. Health education again needs to be structured as per the role requirements that the graduates will pay. So health education does not always mean doctors. Health education also means physiotherapists, nursing staff, right? So what so-called whatever nowadays you call them as COVID warriors, they are not fully doctors, right? So they are paramedics. So they are those people who undergo some healthcare education. So in order to inject an injection into the body, you need not be a fully like a doctor. You can also be a paramedic, right? So such people also will be required, because now itself you have seen over the past 2 years there is a heavy shortage of doctors, right? So even the healthcare people, nursing staff, so that even if you have seen over the last second wave when it happened, even the medical final year students were asked to go on duty and perform their duties in the COVID wards. So such things should be flexible and people should be able to readily adapt to such requirements. So, and finally coming to our own part of technical education, yesterday we have discussed in detail. So I won't touch much on this degree diploma. So it's understood. So this is self-explanatory that we'll have to like those who couldn't complete a degree should be given a diploma life skills and they are still employable. So employability is important, not that course fully completed has to be completed to get a good job. So it's not that. So employability in the sense that diploma with very good hands-on experience may always perform better over an entire lifespan. So he or she may not achieve it very soon, just like an engineering graduate would do or a higher salary, but over the course of time, over the few years, that life skills, whatever that person has on job learned, hands-on experience, that will count. So that will contribute and which is critical to India's development, overall development. So that is what they mean here on the third point, as you can see, critical to the country's overall development. So coming to this, and there are two parts to this, adult education and lifelong learning. So adult education, I always take this example of these movies which come where someone drops out early and again joins the course. So you could have seen the Shah Rukh Khan movie. So there you would have seen that that person joins the college many years later after he is in job. So the it like what does it mean? The opportunity to attain this literacy is basically has become just like this is right to speech is there, which is governed by our constitution, right? So I can always criticize even my director and say that, sir, I do not agree with what you are saying. So there is nothing wrong in saying this, but as long as I don't abuse anybody. So I have a right of speech. I can say in a cordial manner that, sir, I or my vice chancellor, I can say, sir, I do not agree with this. I have a different viewpoint. So by saying this, like I am not abusing it. This is the right of speech. So like this, they are going to bring the right for education. So it's on already it is some part of that is already existing RTE, right to education, just like right to information is there, right of education is there, because it is obtained, it is now seen educating people, whether it is the children or whether it is the grown-up adults, it will be seen as a basic right of every citizen in our country. So that is what the policy is promoting, that everybody should get an opportunity to learn. So that we call as lifelong learning, right? So coming to this, how to do this, which are the supporting bodies, because we are talking about how these will be achieved. So here, I think all of us know about NCERT. So the body which is dedicated to adult education. So it is here they formulate the policies. So it will be, this will be empowered. So this NCERT will be empowered to put a framework, to frame the rules, so that it is dedicated and we get good adult education and lifelong learning. Then comes, what about the infrastructure? Say when I say that lifelong learning, say I'm working in the morning, right? I'm doing some job, say for example, I am a salesman in a company, but I want to upgrade my skill. But during my office hours, I won't go because I'll have to spend time on my job because it's a livelihood for my family. I'm a salesman. Say evening times, which is vocational. So the time that I get in the evening, that could be possibly devoted towards that. So in case I want to go to devote my evening, then I should require schools to be there. I should require colleges to be functional. So what the idea is, after this school hours, because general school or general colleges or general institutes get over by 5:36. So after the school hour, infrastructure is already present. Can we reuse this? So this is that we'll have to use, yes, suitable infrastructure will be ensured, right? Where to do this. So how to use? So they will be using the schools, school complexes after the school hours and during the weekends. So you could see over the weekends, and public library spaces are also there. So that also can be used for the adult education by giving them courses, online videos. So you could have a computer in these libraries and the person can come and put a microphone or the overhead phone and listen to all the lectures. So it will be self-learning that. So in for this, it should be ICT equipped. ICT means information communication technology. So it's a general term used nowadays for say tabs. Somebody has a tab, somebody has a microphone, right? Somebody has a Walkman type of thing. We have our projectors. So all these technology enabled learning, whatever we do, non blackboard type of thing is via the ICT. So the online classes. So ICT equipments, infrastructure should be there to do this, so that the community people can come and get their engagement. So any person who is working in the morning shifts can do learning over evening or over the weekends. Okay, so coming to this, how to, but at the same time, see, the instructor also should be available. It is not that the person comes in the salesman comes in the evening for education, but somebody is not there to teach. So instructor educators will also be required. They'll have to be empowered, to be given some extra remuneration for them to come and work in the evenings, right? So that they achieve this particular goal, that everybody becomes literate. So this particular thing will be requiring the support of instructors as well as educators. So, and in addition to that, as we said, these fourth and fifth point are again strengthening the technology to do that, as well as in the community we have to go to the slums also and tell that education is really important. You can get a better job if you are educated, right? So such things should be is recommended, and the body which will be doing it is the NCERT. So that will be empowered to do it. So coming to the use of technology and integration, which is the other point in the key areas of focus. So as we all aware, nowadays we read, we listen so much things about new technology, that AI has come, machine learning has come. So these so many things have come, right? So educational this software and hardware are just available in the classroom. You can just use it, etc. So adopting to them. So not all of us can use those particular technology. So we have to adopt some suitable training has to be given to these students. So who will do this? The autonomous body. So it is called NETF, National Education Technology Forum, will be created very soon. It's almost done. So it is going to provide a platform for free exchange of ideas. So on the technology aspects, assessment, planning, as well as how to do it, whether to give it to school, higher education, lifelong education. So this will be a budgetary body. So sufficient budget will be given by the cabinet as well as the state government to this autonomous body. So when we say autonomous, it is not directly under the control of state or the central, it is guided by them. Fund is given, but the autonomous body itself, with its own structure, whatever they propose, they decide how to do it. So the National Education Technology Forum will be created, which is going to see how to use technology and integrated it with existing schools and colleges and for lifelong learning. So coming to this, so what are the thrust areas? So the thrust areas would be to improve the teaching learning, evaluation process. See, important part, as we say, we should never forget the supporting the teacher preparation. Not all of the teachers are internet savvy, so that particular thing has to be brought in them, that more than that, you can use your projectors, you can make simple slides, it looks in a better way, you can go, you can get some extra remuneration in the evening, so please do it. So that kind of consultative and educative approach to existing teachers can enhance our education access. It can streamline all the policy related matters. In addition to that, we can also use software for the above purposes, so which is referred to as educational software. So what these educational softwares are? So these educational softwares are either your apps which are developed by some companies. So this will be developed now by the government, so which will be easily accessible to everybody. So just like nowadays, CoWIN is an app where we book for our vaccination. So like this, a rich variety of educational software will be made available either via application, so that because phones are there on all our hands, or via the desktop or PC, whatever we call. So either there, so that the software will be available not only in our English and Hindi, but all our vernacular languages, so that it can be accessed all by regional languages, so that it will be accessed by all of them, as well as Divyang students. So when I refer to as Divyang students, those who are physically handicapped, So as we all know, they either adopt Braille or they use some other way of doing the things. So that will be the technology will be enabled so that they also can use this. So see this. So they see this ambit. The ambit will be lifelong learning for all, not only for well-educated, even for workers in the evening, even for students, and even for Divyang students. So this policy is encompassing everybody, and it is being made because India is a very big country with lot of languages. People face issues. Not everybody are good in English. So some people are good in Hindi, but over the northern belt, over the southern belt, they still prefer their own languages. So that will be inclusive. So this is what is meant by inclusive, that the language also will be accounted. So coming to the how this will be done, what, like I think yesterday we had some questions on this online and digital education, how it is equitable use of. See, when I use the word equitable, so what does it equitable mean? So can anybody tell me what is equitable? The
Does
name
it mean
itself
an
says it.
equitable distribution, sir? Does it mean it is an equitable distribution of resources?
Yeah, so means simple like meaning of equitable means you can use layman example also, not necessary in this context. The name itself says equit or equity, equitable. So what does it mean?
Equal distribution without partiality.
Yeah, so here see, I'll simple use, say when I'll use math here, so all of us understand math, A is equal to B. So when I say A is equal to B, I'll ask you a question whether A is greater or B is big. A is big or B is big? Who is bigger? A is bigger or B is bigger here?
Both are equal.
Yeah, so that's what the answer I was expecting. Both are equal. So now I ask this question: is a rich man should get an access to education or a poor man? Or
No, it
or a
has to
poor?
be the same throughout.
Yeah, it should be
Income
same
should not
throughout. Yeah. So as madam has already rightly told, everybody are, see, it is when it becomes a right to education, as we earlier in the slide we saw, it is equal. Now it will not belong to our race, religion, gender, nothing, right? It is equitable means everybody can use it. So it is not that I can afford a very high iPad or it is not like that. So these tablets or these tabs, whatever we call, will be made available even to the poorest of the poor, right? So how to do it? Ensuring equitable use of, because it is not so, no, we are, see, there are two things in India. One is digital divide, right? Where we have a big digital divide over these rural areas or the urban areas. Then we have some sort of this divide where we divide ourselves, rich class and the poor class, right? So we are already existing in such a system, so it is not possible overnight to remove it and say that it should be removed, but it will take some time. So what they say is online and digital education, making it equitable means so that everybody can use it. So how, so for that again the funding will be required, government has to intervene. I cannot say nicely in a talk that okay, it will be done, this will be paying, so this will happen, then the talk will end and it will it is still on paper. Like what I'm trying to say is it will still remain on paper. So if somebody is serious about it and wants to make it happen, then appropriate funding should be ensured, and funding should not be ensured only from the how much return I will get. So always governments always thought earlier that how much return, what is my return? So either return in terms of the monetary parts or return in terms of vote banks. So is it true? Answer is no. When see this education policy says don't consider your monetary back returns, don't consider your vote banks, make everybody literate. So that is what it says. In order to do that, our National Research Foundation, yesterday I have told you, an NRF. So just like DST and NRF will be formed, so that will look into all these aspects over how to advance these new technologies, how to make it useful for society. So they have adopted a a three-step approach. Advancing the core research, they will fund the core research, they will fund the applied research, and they will address trying to address this in healthcare, in agriculture, what I have already told, as well as climate change, right? And they will try to use these like they will try to initiate masters and PhD programs in this new multidisciplinary field like this AI and machine learning, etc., healthcare, agriculture, so that it becomes these equitable things. If this research is enhanced, then the cost of these devices will go down. The technology apps, all these apps will be easily available so that it becomes equitable to everybody. So that is what it means. So how do we do it? It's a very big recommendation. I cannot go over all of this. So I can just say in brief. So they are also recommending some pilot studies because over these 2 years, as you can see, everybody, including me, have become addicted, so addicted to these desktop or these laptops or these tabs or phones that it has some sort become an addiction, right? So it is okay for us that, okay, once our normal classes starts, again we walk into the class over the chalk and talk approach, or we go into deliberation session, tutorial sessions where we go and help our students. But what about the younger generation who have not seen the earlier chalk and talk? See, what about children who are 4 5 years old? So last 2 years they have seen only this. So maybe they are getting addicted by the technology. Maybe they are getting addicted by the computers. So only say after the regular schooling starts, maybe they still will be playing games on these computers because they will always think that, okay, this is what is nice, because that has been told that your school is on your computer, right? So so pilot studies will be done for the use and the benefits as well as the drawbacks of this online education, right? So that is recommended again in this particular policy on online and digital education. In order to do this equitable thing, so there will be investment done by the National Research Foundation for the digital infrastructure. So the digital infrastructure not only means computers, it means laying fiber optic cables, it means putting wireless access points. So it is a lot of infrastructure which is going to be put, lot of money which will be put. In addition to that, it will be also creating two like these platforms which already exist. You can also go and see today Swayam and Diksha. So these are platforms which are having innumerable number of courses in all the subjects, right from economics, technology, agriculture, everything. So you could use them. There is two options. Either you can see it and sit quiet, or you can be part of the Swayam course where you can enroll, do the classes, appear for an online exam. In case you exceed their threshold of exam, then you will be certified. So that has already started. So the Swayam has already started. Swayam courses are already online, and every 6 months, one particular course they float accordingly. Every faculty course like proposes and floats this along with lectures. So you could always do this Swayam Diksha kind of online teaching platforms. So coming to how this will be done, lot of content creation is remaining. Digital repositories are being filled, yes, but to the diversity of India, no, we don't have appropriate courses in regional languages. So if you know, the JE coaching or even this AI NEET coaching is still not there in regional languages, right? So here there is again a gap here which need to be say bridged with regard to content creation, changing the languages, making it vernacular. So and addressing the digital divide. So when I say addressing the digital divide, remote areas, how do we connect? So one takes a laptop computer and goes there, one may not find a tower to connect via mobile for the data part. Then what to do, right? So, but if you see TVs are already there, so televisions are already broadcasting. So now what there is one more channel called Swayam Prabha. So I think you would have heard Swayam Prabha. Swayam Prabha is meant for these very remote districts. There they are putting these local languages kind of courses for these children. Now comes whether the children want to learn or they are going to play. So again, that is again should be monitored. We never know what happens. Then see, although learning is happening via online, still only theoretical classes are happening. Labs are not taking place. See, microprocessor in electronics, we have to have a kit. So how can I teach microprocessor with a kit format in physical format, which requires a physical connection between the devices? How can I teach it online? So still it is a challenge because the pandemic has driven that labs are not yet virtual. So some thinking should go on making how to make it like online. Yeah, again, I am reiterating, we will not go into details because of lack of time. We will not go into details of this particular part, that training and incentives for teachers. I am a very big proponent of giving incentive to teachers, especially school teachers, because there is where is the difficulty. They are at the ground level and they are the people who are actually preparing the people for us, for university level or an institute level or a college level people. The actual thing molding is done by the school level teachers. So unless they are paid properly, unless they have been encouraged to give, because you cannot expect very less payment or once like a salary given once in 4 months, 6 months, and expect them to dedicate and devote their entire time for that. Answer is no. So they have to be made proper. So incentives for teachers and training for teachers should be looked into. Just like we train our soldiers, we are giving all our facility to them, good eating facilities, good living conditions for their families, etc. Similar things should be done for the teachers. Then only our next generation will be able to come up, so that when they reach the university and they already have their values. So coming to the last part here, so though we can deliver a class, though we can take a class online, but how do we assess? How do we create an exam? So this is still a challenging task, even for NITs like us, which are the leading NITs of our country. Still we are facing problems because we are not able to appropriately deliver we take the exams. We don't know whether there is appropriate proctoring or not. So still it is, though NTAs, these centers are there, National Assessment Center, so will be created. This NTA so this NTA is already existing. So so can you mute your mic, please?
सादा सादा पराठा बोल दो एक अचार हाँ एक अचार ऐसे ही हल्का सा छोटा सा
I'm requesting the moderator to please like put the mute. Okay, so NTA is already there, National Testing Agency is already there, which is doing this our JEE exams, right? JEE exams, they are doing state JEE or these JEEs, they are doing. NTA is already there. They are doing NEET, they are doing all our competitive exams, National Testing Agency. So like that, they are going to create National Assessment Center, NAC. So that is going to be created, and they are going to do this so that we can do assessments in a proper way. Assessments till date is a big challenge. So coming to the fourth part, making it happen, how to make all these. So these are the key areas of focus: digital education, right? So coming to technology use, adult education, professional education. And I have not touched, as I told, promotion of Indian language, arts and culture, I have not touched. There are two reasons for which I have not touched. I am not an expert on these culture, arts and languages, so I cannot comment more on that. So, and my time is also limited, that I restricted. So these are the two reasons that I have not touched that. So my request is to you that you could read it and see what perspective, or there will be other speakers across this workshop. If they are coming from those fields, be kind enough to ask them. So coming to the part 4, how to make it happen. So this is, as you are seeing, 25, 26, 27. So it ends. So these are the ending points in the NEP 25, 26, 27. So we are now going to talk about that. So how to achieve this? So this will be strengthening the advisory board. I'll tell you how exactly it is. Then appropriate financing. As I told already, I have told that finance is an important part. Then comes how it would be implemented. So next 15 to 20 minutes we'll spend quickly in understanding how this implementation would happen. So here the advisory board of education would be set up, right? So this will be a sort of a policy making body, Central Advisory Board of Education, and it will have the power and it will have the great mandate. So doing what? In understanding, in talking to all the stakeholders, right? And then formulating the policies. So it will also talk to all the institutions, both state, national, as well as individual people. So it will talk to all of them, then take concrete actions. So there will be an advisory board of education. This is not fully formed. It is in the process of being formed. So Central Advisory Board of Education, this will be the ultimate body which will be looking into the execution aspect. To the financing part again, and I'll spend some time here because I have some experience on this, listening as well as being part of some committees on this, right? So finance is a very big issue over across all, I think even our home finances. So if you ask, I'll always say that no, my current finances are not sufficient for my home needs. So finance is such a thing that you never know you have, but you still want more. After that, again, you want more, etc., etc. But let's look at it. What was the recommendation? So GDP refers as gross domestic product. So this basically tells how our economy is doing. So currently we are around, before the pandemic, we were doing well. We were at around 9 to 10%, 12% we were reaching. So again, we have come down. Our GDP has gone down. So in early 80s or the late 80s and early 90s, when the policy was formed, they always told education cannot be say that I can spend X number of crores or X number of millions. It is not like that. Education should be viewed as so much percentage of the GDP we have to spend. So whatever is the GDP may be 5%, 8%, 20%. This much percentage, say 5%, 6, 7, 8% of GDP we should spend, right? So that never happened. It was recommended as 6% of GDP. So if you see 6% of GDP in the 1968 policy, again it was told yes. In 1986 policy, it was told yes, 6% is required, right? But till date, it is still less than 4.43% of GDP, right? So when I say GDP, it is comprising of center as well as states, both. So unless, so see, not only education, defense is also part of GDP. No matter whatever is the GDP, this much percentage of money is spent for defense because everybody says that we cannot compromise there. Similarly, on education also, it was required to spend this much percentage of money into the education sector, maybe school education, maybe higher education, whatever. But that percentage was never used. What was done was so many crores will spend for this year, enough. How much that percentage was as part of GDP, although they knew, but they never told, right? So budget was a long-term constraint for our policy. So any policy is always going to remain on paper unless money is given to execute it. See, what does the money mean? Money does not mean always creating infrastructure, buildings, etc. Money also means incentivizing teachers, faculty, giving them good promotions, giving them good family facilities, etc., etc. So that is also part of that incentives. So here the policy always recommended, but whenever it came to execution, subsequent governments did not put that much money into the education sector. So now there is a need for us to, that is what the policy again says, at least bring 6% of total GDP, that money into education, whether it is school, liter or higher education, whatever, bring that much money. So that is the biggest financing is the biggest recommendation now. So for what these finances will be used, are few points are there. So it will be used for early childhood care education. So this includes creche, this includes basic education in your primary schools. So that is what foundation literacy it says, right? So it says about providing adequate infrastructure resources for school and complexes clusters. It says about this midday meals. So all of us are aware that in our cities, you are having schools which are having midday meals. People go there because why it came midday meals, I can just tell you very this briefly is midday meals came because students were not coming to schools. I'm talking about the rural students. They were not coming to school. when asked, they were saying, why I'll go to school, I'll go and work somewhere. Parents were not sending them. What they will do, let them go and work and earn some money. At least some food will be there. So the idea was, can food be part of the education? So afternoon meals were given, evening snacks were, morning snacks were given, right? For few, and for certain states, only midday meals were given. So that started attracting people, because the poor families thought that at least we have 3 or 4 children, at least one time of food is taken by these, or else we have to prepare, let them go to school. So when they go to school, out of 10, at least 5 or 6 of the students learn along with taking a meal, right? So that was the idea with this breakfast and midday meal schemes, which was a hit. Like it was a sort of a hit, because it worked and people started getting educated and coming to school. So the attendance, literacy, etc. increased. So here again, we have to invest money, because food will have to be paid. So appropriate budgetary provision should be done. This I think I have already spoken, investing in teachers, so I won't speak about this. Yeah, so this already I have spoken, revamping colleges, universities to doing this. This already I have spoken. Cultivating research, as is all known to us, we have to do it in order to be relevant. Then extensive use of technology and online education also I have spoken, so I won't speak much on this. So coming to this, so the last part of this is, they are also recommending calling these private players to invest in government education. So what do they mean by this? So you would have heard that these companies, big multinational companies or any startups which have achieved a lot of money, so they can also be part of our education system by contributing some fund. Currently, it is called CSR. C for corporate, S for social, R for responsibility. Corporate social responsibility, where if they give, suppose I am a company, right? Suppose I am a company and my company name is say X. I am belonging to X company, right? And I pay say 10 crores to the government for education, CSR of my company. Then that amount, whatever I have paid 10 crores, does not attract me tax. So I can just philanthropically give it to the education sector. So that takes away my tax burden from my company. So that is currently there, but they want it to become more and include more better schemes to towards doing that, so that these private companies which are already having a lot of money, they can be given participation in education system. So I think some part of that has already started with I think this Geo University being given Institute of Importance. So I think some part of this has already started. But the recommendation is that private philanthropic activity in the education sector should start on government money. So when we say government money, it is not the money of the government that of a political party that they are giving us. Answer is no. Over the 75 years, I think young number of political parties have governed the entire country. So I think in single government, multiple coalition governments, etc., etc., it is not government money. It is the money from the taxpayer. So how do we do? Say I use a paste, so there is certain amount, toothpaste I mean, certain amount of money which I pay as a tax for that. So that gets accumulated in the government money. So it is, earlier it was called VAT. Nowadays it is called GST. There is state GST and there is the central GST. So all these money accumulated becomes the government money. And that government money is put into education, is put into healthcare. So is put into all other things like defense. It's government money, means it is taxpayers money, right? So along with this taxpayers money, the policy recommends individual people who have attained excellence via their entrepreneurship, they can also contribute and become part of this initiative, the education initiative. So that is what it means. Okay, so coming to the last part, I think I am almost ending this part. Coming to the last part of affordable and quality education, for the financing part, commercialization of education is a very difficult part that all of us have had experience with. So when I mean what is commercialization of education, see, commercialization of education means earning a lot of profit from basic education. So one of the common example is this, whatever we call these as tuition classes, or these coaching classes, etc. So it becomes like a factory. How to make this, how to cut this factory, which are churning out all these individuals, making a lot of money out of that. So that is a matter of debate. And till now, I don't think anybody has got a proper answer to this, right? So they are trying their best to by making the exams a little bit lightweight so that it doesn't become very tight. So if it becomes, that's what we refer that light but tight. Okay, light but tight means that. So if you make it very tight, the commercial, all these commercial coaching classes will give coaching to break it. And they will tell how to crack those exams. So instead of making it tight, so at the same time, not diluting quality, someone wants to make it light so that people are not, means they don't have the feeling of going to these coaching classes, right? So this is an ongoing subject. It's again open for discussion, right? So we will not spend much time here because not everybody have got the answer to this. Coming to the implementation, finally coming to the implementation part, this policy including, so this policy overall, as I think I was talking yesterday, few of you asked me how it will be implemented, etc., etc. The answers are here. So it will be implemented jointly. So I am using the word jointly, though they have not written here. So I am putting it my own words here, jointly. When I say jointly, all of them will be contributing towards its implementation. Who they are? MOE, Ministry of Education. Earlier they used to call it MHRD. Then you are having all these bodies, whatever I told today. Then you are having the state governments. State governments are there. State departments of education, boards, national testing agency, regulatory bodies, NCERTs, all these bodies, whatever I have told, higher education institutes, autonomous bodies, central universities, all of them will be participating here. Yesterday itself, I was just seeing the news after my entire day's work. I saw that the current Minister of Education, Honorable Dharmendra Pradhan ji, was inaugurating online Karnataka government's implementation of NEP. So that clearly means every state will have to form a joint task force, which will look into how that will be useful to their state, right? So all of the states should be proactive in doing that. So then only it will be able to be implementable, or else it becomes very difficult to get implemented. Central government cannot impose anything on the state governments because of the current system which we are in. We are in a federal government, like we are in a federal structure where there is a recommending body, where there is a provisioning authority for finance. So as you have seen, there is CGST, state GST, as well as your central GST, right? CGST and SGST. So you have both. So like that, here also the jointly it should be worked out with all of these people, and these recommending bodies should be empowered. So this is the implementation part. So finally, I think I am ending here. So just I'm just summarizing here. Implementation of the policy should be in spirit and intent. So it should not be with the spirit. Recently, I'll tell you a joke. I was just preparing these slides, I think 3-4 days back. Over this weekend, I was preparing over the last weekend. I happened to visit one of my friends because there was some because this is a holy month and there was some puja. And I just told them I will be joining you people a little bit late. My family will go before because I am preparing some slides. So when I went, I had a few of my colleagues there. They asked, "What are you going to talk on?" Then I told I'm going to talk on national education policy. So one of my colleague asked me, "Are you pro or anti of this?" So it was a very difficult question for me. So whether I am a pro or an anti for national education policy, then my answer to him was I am neutral to it. Then there was a big laughter saying that we always get diplomatic answers from you. So then I said that see, there is no question of being pro or being anti, right? There is always a question of being consultative. Think these are the good aspects. These may be the bad as may not work. Let's see if it does not work. Let's change. So that should be the spirit. And I'm telling you this example because we should look into the spirit and intent. With what spirit it was done. So see, nobody wrote NEP with the spirit of bringing bad things to our children, right? So the spirit was to make something good. Maybe some parts the policy may lack where it may be reviewed, right? And it may be slightly tweaked because it may not fit everybody, right? So coming to the important implementation, so it will be put up in a phased manner. So not overnight it will be, so phase 1, phase 2, etc. Because previously also we should see what was successful, and if it was good, then we should continue that. So then priority will be important towards what sequence we will do, which are the urgent items first. So the urgent items will be taken up first. Okay, then we can go for, because these urgent items require big budget. So let's do that first, and then I think something else. So even as per me, more than higher education, though I belong to the higher education category, I am a faculty in the higher education, still I feel more money should go to school education, right? So urgent actions are to be taken there. So then come to the full-fledged like implementation, it will take some time. They have recommended 10 years from 2020 till 2030. So it will go in a phased wise manner. Okay, so finally coming to the analysis of this. This is a big policy which requires central and state. It's a satisfactory execution of the policy requires cooperation from everybody. So it cannot be a piecemeal like approach. So in order to do this, all stakeholders should be taken into consideration and confidence, and then only one can go ahead. So I think with this, we have come to the end of this talk, right? At least from the slide point of view. As I said earlier, from 2020 till 2030, it will be implemented, but its follow-up actions will be taken from 2030 to 2040. They are going to check how it worked over the 10 years from 20, how it was implemented, what were the lacunae, right? Will there be requirement of some other body which needs to be prepared, etc., etc. So those things will be looked into. So I think that broadly says that we are in. So this is a 20-year policy, because 2020 to 2030 implementation, then 2030 to 2040 review, right? So we don't know about the subsequent governments, how they will look into it. So again, we cannot talk about the future. We can talk about the present based on what we have experiences from the past. So with this, I think I am ending this particular slide at least. But before I end anything, whenever I give a talk, it is my duty that I belong to this particular institute, NIT Rourkela. So it is, I am known because NIT Rourkela is known. So that's why I always talk about my institute before talking about myself. So NIT Rourkela, as we all know, as per the NIRF, which is a government entity for ranking, so we are standing in top 20 for the past 5 years. Internationally too, we are also doing good. So we are among the top 3 NITs in India at least. And internationally too, we are among the top 2. NIT Trichy and NIT Rourkela are the 2 NITs which are standing out internationally also. So coming to this, we have 20 departments, which we have with 74 courses, and we are around 360 plus faculties as on date. So these are our departments. I have circled my department. I belong to this electronics and communication engineering. So we have 2 UG programs, 5 PG programs, and 3 dual degree programs. So that is what we have. And these are the programs that we have at our institute: BTech, MTech. We have an integrated MLC dual degree. We have arts, we have humanities, management, sciences, MTech by research, and of course we have PhD over all these branches. So we are a fully residential campus, 700 acres of campus. These are our facilities. These are the buildings. This is our main building here, right? So these are our other blocks, what we have. So we are having 11 hostels. We have several playgrounds. So it's a fully residential campus. Unfortunately, now we don't have students. They have been sent out because of the pandemic. We have only the PhD students who are currently staying. So we have a school also within. We have all these facilities at our institute. So coming to the centers of research, we have around 10 to 11 centers now. Recently, 2 more are added. So I belong to the research in computer vision and pattern recognition. So coming to my own profile, I think Indrani madam read my profile, but at least it is always better that I tell about myself, that it is This is the basic part that I have done. I done my MTech and PhD from IIT Kharagpur, and I have been I basically belong to Karnataka, and I have finished my undergraduate education in from this engineering institute at Karnataka. So coming to the what my research group does, we basically do image processing, video processing, we do forensics. So we have a set of equipments in our laboratory which we use and do research. Research is always one part. It is one part of our story, right? So I am heading the lab called Intelligent System Lab where we do all this. So this is just a snapshot of our laboratory. Coming to the honors that we have been part, I've been lucky enough to be awarded a few awards here and there, right? With regard to early career by DST, then the IBM Great Mind Challenge Award, Microsoft India Research, and few of the best paper awards. So coming to, as I was part of the Ministry of Education, earlier MHRD joint delegation which visited Tokyo just before the pandemic started. Maybe I was lucky that we just finished the visit, came back to India, and then everything closed. So this photograph was taken in the Japanese embassy in New Delhi. These were 23 Indians who visited Japanese university, who stayed in Tokyo for 10 days. And we explored collaboration with the Japanese university from the Indian government side. And recently also, one good thing which happened over this pandemic was we also were able to do just before the second wave started. We always thought that the second wave would never come and everything would be normalized. So in the month of March, we were doing our convocation, and we were very lucky to have our Honorable President of India, Sri Ramnath Kovind with us, with along with the Union Minister of Education. He was then the Union Minister of Steel. Now he's the Union Minister of Education. He was also with us, along with our governor as well as few other state ministers. I'm just putting a video here. So just put in the video in the share screen. So I happened to host this. So it was a lucky moment, once in a lifetime opportunity that was given to me.
Audience may kindly rise. Ladies and gentlemen, Honorable President of India, Sri Ramnath Kovind ji. Ladies and gentlemen, the national anthem. Audience may kindly take their seats. I request Director Sir to present a memento to the Chief Guest, Honorable President of India, Sri Ramnath Kovind ji. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly rise for the national anthem.
So this was the part of the convocation. I'm just showing you because it was indeed because it was sitting president of India visiting the NITs. He has not yet visited any sitting president of India has not yet visited our NIT at least. So this was the first sitting president of India. Earlier we had like Pranab Mukherjee visiting our campus, but at that time he was finance minister. So it was the first time that we had a sitting president coming to the campus, and I had the honor of hosting that particular convocation. It was I think with 5 to 8 days was very difficult because we had to undergo multiple RT-PCR tests because we had to be on the and lot of security checks, voice quality check. So President's office was directly talking to us, especially me, because they wanted to be very sure with what I am talking, right? And the voice quality. So you've seen here everything went well. So this was part of my talk, right? So I open it for all of you for any question and answers. And as I have told that I cannot speak much, right? So I can always speak for 1 to 1.5 hours. So I think I am ending it here. I thank once more GEC Bilaspur for having invited me and all the participants for having patiently listened to me. So now we open it to the participants to see whether we have any questions so that we can have a broader perspective on this. So I now hand it over to the participants, please. So I'm putting off my screen share. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. You rightly mentioned that under the National Education Policy 2020, the focus areas of the reforms seek to cultivate 21st century skills among students, including critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, and digital literacy. It recognizes the need to bridge the gap in education through technology. You also talk about the important points that are necessary to implement NEP 2020. I request all the participants to join the discussion and ask questions. They can either raise hands or post questions in WhatsApp group. Yes. Yes,
Good
sir,
morning,
go
sir.
ahead.
Good morning, sir. Sir, my question is regarding actually I am working in a affiliated college with AQTU. My question is that how the college will be changed in the current scenario, as per the new policy. University, that is okay. I understand university can be changed dramatically. They are autonomous bodies. They can implement the things very quickly. But how these colleges will be changed? Because there are so many challenges for the colleges. They are affiliated with these colleges, universities. So my question is in that sense.
Yeah, so I think I can get it that you are talking about class 11 and class 12.
No. I am talking about the graduate engineering colleges.
Okay, the engineering colleges. Okay,
which
it
are
may also
affiliated with some universities.
Okay, so you are talking about the state government affiliated universities which are present. So the colleges which are present. So maybe private, semi-aided, aided. So they will like the idea is just like AICT is there. Currently, they are all under All India Council for Technical Education, and they formulate the AICT formulates the policies which the institutes follow. Similarly, here AICT will always be there. Along with that, the Central Advisory Board for Education, CAB, what we referred, that will also be there, and they will formulate a set of guidelines for the colleges. So not only autonomous bodies, it is not easy that in autonomous body we can do everything. Answer is no. We are also having our own problems. We are having our own structures which are very rigid sometimes. So it's not only private colleges or aided colleges, even universities or even centrally autonomous institutes have their own problems. So it is not that problems are not, it's very easy overnight I can do changes. Answer is no.
Yes.
Even if we have to do, then it takes at least 2-3 months for some change to happen. So I think with regard to your questions, maybe there will be this CAB which will consult AICTE, and they will come up with a sort of regulations where they will try to make it more flexible, more teacher or more faculty productive, because they are the finally who is teaching? The faculty are teaching the students, right? So unless it is made, unless the promotional policies, their incentives are worked on, nobody will get the motivation of working good. So the final implementation part is teacher training, teacher incentive, giving teacher incentives, giving good promotional policies, giving good family skills to them so that their children are get educated. Like see for in our example in autonomous body, children get education till class 10. free education till class 10. Free education in the sense reimbursable. So I put my children in some school, the year's fees is given by the institute. Such things should come towards this. Maybe the policy makers will understand. Okay, or maybe people like us, if we become policy makers, we will put forward the point that you have to pay good amount of money, because finally it rests there. Any changes finally rest on budget, on finance, and
Another
unless the
problem,
finance is yeah.
Another problem we generally face as a college, affiliated college, that in 2017 I completed my PhD, and I want to research student, because there is so much pressure in the colleges also. So you want research scholar, at least you can get some good research paper with the collaboration with them. You can guide them.
Yeah.
But that is not there in this system. I have to search the students. And there are some other issues also due to some reasons that we are not able to get the students. So that can be, I think, also be taken care of by these new policies.
Yeah, that will be taxing. Even we are having a problem. Say, I am from NIT. That doesn't mean that we are getting very good students. So it is for
in fact,
you.
We are not
outside,
getting students. We are not getting students. That is the challenge for us.
Yeah. So for us, the problem is we are getting students. It's not that we are not getting, but we are not getting good quality. So what is happening is they are saying that they will go to IITs, especially the first 5 IITs. They are going towards there. Okay, so whatever we are getting, it's kind of an average students. And if we are getting average students, then I am very sure
I have seen regarding that is that some students want to prepare for the government jobs, and generally they take admission for the after getting JRF scholarship and all. I have seen this scenario. Then they start preparing the exam after getting admission into the PhD program.
Yeah. I think we have that scenario here also. If the situation is that here in NIT, in state government affiliated colleges, the situation students at all, which is actual true. So now policy decisions should make that somehow they should be allowed, they should be given stipends, proper stipends. So see, finally it rests with how much finances the government gives. Unless the government gives finance, it will just like itne saal chal raha tha, abhi bhi chal raha hai. So that would happen like that.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, any other questions? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, as per NEP, we are heading towards multidiscipline. So we talk of different multidiscipline branches or programs like agriculture, technical. But what will be the scenario when we talk of medical and engineering hybrid of this? So what type of courses are possible in medical education and medical courses in technical institute?
Yeah, I think I can tell about this in a clear way, because we are having, NIT Rourkela is currently having a proposal to start a sort of a medical affiliated institute just beside its campus. So whenever there is a medical college, lot of engineering is dealt with that, especially with branches like biomedical, biosciences, life sciences, and electronics, because majorly research, say blood samples are there, you have to see that, so the technical laboratory is required, so then you get some samples you want to study. So it is vice versa, engineers are waiting for medical data to come, like blood samples, chest x-ray or chest CT scan, etc. They are waiting for us to see where exactly it will be used. Right, so engineering and medical can be combined. IIT Kharagpur has already this concept is already there in IIT Kharagpur. They have School of Medical Science and Technology, SMST, School of Medical Science and Technology. So you can Google and you can see School of Medical Science and Technology, where all the medical data, maybe medical images, maybe forensic data, all of this may come to us for investigation. So biomedical branch, biomechanics, our electronics, automation, say we want to automate the entire hospital process. So when the patient enters, you want to enter their details, get an ID. Then with that ID, nowadays how you do, you take a book, go they write something there, then you go to the technician, itna test karna hai, ye le lo, then you have to pay there, etc. It cannot be like that. It can be more automated, that you enter, unique ID comes to your phone, you show it at that particular place, your doctor has that unique ID, open, your history comes out. These are tests recommended. They just tick these many tests to be done. It goes automatically to laboratory. You walk to the laboratory there. They take your whatever sample they take, analyze it. You don't need to carry the report. The report will automatically go to the doctor. So this is called hospital automation. So lot of things can be done with regard to medical education. Few IITs have already done. NIT Rourkela is on the verge of doing it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Indrani, some questions are there on WhatsApp
Yes, sir.
also. Will you please read them out?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, sir. So a participant is asking that what are the best practices at NIT Rourkela in online proctoring during this pandemic?
Best practices is that we are using few technologies like MS Teams. Then there is one more portal called Test Portal. So that can be integrated with MS Teams, but it has not yet proved out to be best practice. We are experimenting, we are learning day by day. Proctoring is very difficult job, and we have tried with one camera, two camera, but somehow the digital divide is there, or I don't know whether the students don't want to give that properly. They always say that the network is a problem. They get disconnected, again they get connected sometimes. So it is very difficult for us to do this online exam. Online teaching is okay, they understand, they learn, etc. But submission of assignments is still okay. But when it comes to an online exam, I myself being a faculty member, personally, I am not very satisfied with whatever is happening. If I have asked few of my friends who in other NITs, as well as few of my friend colleagues who are in IITs, I have asked them, they are also not satisfied. So I will not be able to give you a best practice because we are not yet successful.
Thank you, sir. There is another question in WhatsApp group. Can we expect a shift on quality with respect to education rather than quantity in the NEP?
Yeah, that is what it is meant, that quantity is what it means, that see 4 years you are spending or 5 years, see the amount of time that you are spending, the quantity is more, right? So how can that be reduced to make it more quality oriented, at the same time not spend more like much time and effort? So this balancing is going on to see some things which I studied may not have been useful at all. So I don't want to name those courses, etc., because there may be few people who are experts in that courses, they will feel bad, right? So some other courses I have not used it at all. So, but I spent around a semester doing that courses when I was doing engineering. Okay, so like this, I think these needs to be optimized and seen whether it is relevant to the particular branch or is it out of context. That is what is being worked out. And the semester duration, how much time is spent taking classes, delivering lecture. So it should not go in the traditional way. It should be like what we are talking. I think we are now speaking for 20 minutes like this, one to one. So if you have seen even my talk, I kept it very short to the slides, but I opened up in between. Now I'm interacting with you. This is what we can do, more interaction. Then only we can means get it cleared easily, or else it will be one-way approach. So traditionally our education system is one way. So it is not two-way. Slowly we want to make it two-way. So in order to bring quality, I think some things need to be dropped out so that the recommending body will drop so that it is optimized.
Manish sir, I also have a small doubt, sir.
Yeah,
Can I
please,
ask,
sir.
sir?
Yeah,
Sir,
sure,
when I
sure.
do a small amount of analysis, what I find that all the institutions which stand in NIRF or QS ranking, most of them are very big institutes actually, with students enrollment running more than 5,000. Like yours, I think 6,000 students are there in Rourkela.
Yeah.
In IIT Kharagpur, where you have studied, some 12,000 students are there.
Well, yeah.
But institutes like ours, sir, we have only 1,000 students and 7 branches only. At the same time, IIT Kharagpur offers 128 programs. So this across the discipline culture, how we will be able to do?
Yeah, so here again, I think there is requirement of.
You see in villages, sir, if you, just a moment, sir. If you see in small towns, there are colleges where only one BSc mathematics or one MSc mathematics, because maths does not require any lab. So in most of the places you will find mathematics BSc or MSc. So how they will integrate this culture of a bigger institution where the across the discipline knowledge is being made more important?
Yeah, so I think here is an important question, because see, we are again comparing an elephant and a fish, and means we are trying to compare unequal people, right? So as sir rightly mentioned, Kharagpur has around 14,000 or 12,000 plus students with around 700 faculty. We are around 350, 360, right? Faculty. We are having 6,500 students. Now you take GSC Bilaspur, or you take any other government engineering college in Odisha or Karnataka or Kerala, you take them. How they could never compete. They would never come up in NIRF, right? So I think the requirement would be to change the criteria that if you are above these many thousand students and these many hundred teachers, I mean faculty, then you are eligible for NIRF. Or else you should be made available for one more ranking, where again it should be done by a government body like NIRF, but that will be small scale ranking. So there you will be standing, so you cannot be compared with the NIRF based institutes, because if you do that, then I think one lifetime will go, you may never come here, right? So in order to be, in order to be compatible, then we have to reduce the size. That's my personal opinion from policy point of view. If I am given the opportunity, I will tell that if there is below 2,000 students, then find out how many institutes or colleges are there across the country with 2,000, less than 2,000 students and less than 100 faculty. Yeah, for them, formulate a new ranking system so that they can compete amongst themselves. Here, what will happen? You may not see. It's like just like singing, right? So I may not have the voice of Lata Mangeshkar, though I may sing lifelong. I may never become Lata Mangeshkar or comparable to Lata Mangeshkar, right? So like it's a similar analogy is here with regard to this. One is trying to compare small institutes with very large, big institutes. So it's very difficult to do. So I think the ranking system should change.
Secondly, sir, how we will have this concept of minor and electives and dual degree, because the degree only 7 degrees we are offering, sir. So how do we bring in that culture in our institute, which are very small?
So I think you'll have to talk to your education minister as well as your chief minister. I think maybe Bhagil ji, and tell him that fund us more and we will show you better output.
Yes, sir. Yesterday, by the way, Rajat Muna sir was there, sir. He said elective means elective for the institute or elective for the student. So mostly it is the elective for the institute.
Elective for the institute. You mentioned Professor Rajat Muna. Rajat Muna was with us. I think he has visited our campus twice, and he's a very senior person. He's like kind enough to share his details with me here. So I am in touch with Professor Muna. Sometimes he talks to me, or we have some touch here and there with Professor Muna. I happened to meet him in Kanpur also. Just before the pandemic, when I was traveling, I met him at IIT Kanpur campus. So Professor Muna is a very jolly kind of person. He gives a lot of good examples, has a lot of big like laughter what he does. It's really good company with Professor Muna. And I also saw, I think you had Professor Sarangi as one of your other people who happens to be ex-NIT director, ex-NIT Rourkela director. I happen to be, he recruited me. So maybe he did a wrong thing by taking me here.
So,
Thank you,
Indrani,
sir.
are we there with any other question, or we
Yes,
are
sir.
over now, I suppose?
There is another question by Jyoti Bala Sodi, ma'am. She has raised her hand. Jyoti Bala, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. You have raised your hand, ma'am. Please ask the question.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. I'm curious to know about the changes which will take place, especially in the English assessment skill. Just as we have been having assessment in English speaking skill, the learning skill, the listening skill, the speaking skill. What kind of assessment test we should be having for class 11th and 12th?
Yeah, English thing, I think I can take this question and answer it, because see, whenever I speak my English, it is an Indianized English, right? So you can hear me talk, and I think majority of the people understand my way of talking, because it's an Indianized way of talking, right? But whenever English assessment is done, what we have observed is it is more towards westernized way of talking. So the assessment is whether grammatically am I correct or not. Did I put my also before, or did I put it after? So that kind of thing where we are giving more importance to the grammatical and putting it the syntax and semantics more and more. I think that should change with the Indian scenario, because all of us come from vernacular languages. We talk, we have learned, our primary education has majorly been in our regional languages. Then we have adopted English to as a spoken language. We have, so grammatically, even to this day, I may not be very good. So though I may speak English to a very okay type of extent, I don't claim that I am a very good English speaker, but it may be okay. But still, the assessment scenario in India is biased, or it is more inclined towards the grammatical from the Britishers' point of view. So I think that should change at even class 10, class 11, more of grammar. I don't think anybody requires grammar as long as we put words in a right context and speak. I think the spoken English part should be given more importance considering the Indian scenario. So one cannot always compare a BBC anchor to an Indian anchor. That comparison will again be like what Sanjay sir told, comparing NIT Rourkela or IIT Kharagpur with GEC Bilaspur. So that similar thing will happen with an Indian anchor and an BBC anchor speaking English. So here they are trained, that is their mother tongue, that they do it day in and day out. So this is not our mother tongue, right? English is neither our mother tongue. It's a language that we have learned to communicate with the world in a better way. But when I go out of my room, I talk my regional language at home. I don't talk English. So assessment should be more focused, should be more relaxed, to be more inclusive towards our population.
We can be a bit liberal towards the grammar part and more towards the fluency.
Yeah, we should be
towards
liberal.
fluency.
We should be liberal towards our grammar part, because we should accept that Indians are not very good in grammar. I'll tell you a very recent incident. You just saw the video, what I was talking when I was, see, there were people who told that 3 or 4 names should be sent where the anchoring will be decided, and one among them was me, right? I was very sure that they won't pick me because my English is not that very good. So it's kind of an average, maybe above average. There are very good speakers here. Right, so, but I was very surprised to see like I being picked, right? Because the way in which I expressed my language, the way in which I held my composure, not other, they were more grammatically correct than me, right? They were more efficient than me, but the way in which they carried that particular 5 minute of talk was not the way that I did it. So here I myself an example. That's why I give my own example, because I always take my own example that if I can be like this, then all of you can be like that. So whatever small thing.
Examples should be relatable.
Yeah.
Examples should be relatable. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, like I always take my own example. See, because I'm an average person, right? So you don't think that I was the topper of my class. I was never the topper. I used to come in when even in my school days, I used to be in my top 5 or 6. I never used to be 2, 1 like that. Even in my engineering days, my MTech, my PhD, my MTech days, coincidentally, I happened to be the topper, but unluckily, I was the joint topper. There was one more of my friend who held the same CGPA. So there I had to share that prize. Okay, so that also was in MTech. MTech was a small subset because we were only 12 people, right? And from PhD also, I didn't finish in 2 or 3 years. I took my own time of 4 years and finished it in 4 years. And here also, I am kind of an average faculty. I am not very bright or very bright faculty who achieve so many things. There are far more better faculty than me here. And I always humble submission is that I am not very good. So that's the kind of, and I'm learning day by day. So today I learn something, tomorrow I implement, I learn something. Currently I am head of department for computer center. And when it was given to me also, I thought, are you serious to give it to me? Right? Be very sure. I told my administration, be very sure that you are giving it to me. Yes or no. There are far more better people. So I think what in your context, what you are speaking here is there should be more liberal in especially in languages, because our barrier is language. We are very good in doing things, but we are very bad in expressing things. So I think if
Yes,
that
sir.
is liberalized, yeah, if that is liberalized, we get a lot of scope that many people start giving us like the Indians an opportunity. So see I myself an example here. So I anchored the biggest event of NIT Rourkela till date. Right, till date it is the biggest event, right? And there were so many better people than me, and they participated, right? I also participated. So it is just like that.
Sir, as long as you are convincing, I think so you can call night as a day. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thanks. Anybody else? I think we have one. I can take one more question. I think Rajeshwari
So there is a
or
question by Dr. K. Narasimha Rao.
Narasimha Rao. Yeah.
Please go ahead. Yes, sir.
Sir, Professor Manish, most of our workforce is electricians, plumbers, welders, and so on. They may be not having any degrees. They have gone up on their own, learned it, and or they are from a ITI or a diploma holder. But with the current NEP, we'll be giving a certificate at the first year of engineering, and the second year of engineering we are giving a diploma. Is the workforce affected? Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, you're audible. I got your question. I don't think the workforce will be affected. It will be blessing in disguise, because maybe the current people who are working are not working without any certificates. So if they are given certificates, then they have something to show. See, the morale goes up. See, finally, when do I feel good? I feel good sometimes when somebody appreciates me. Somebody says that no, like he has a certificate with him, he's qualified. So that morale boosting, I think, is important with these certificates. It is not going to highly change the quality, because I am going to work the same way the plumber, electrician, painter, everybody who are there, the life skills what they have developed across, that will not change. But their morale will be high that okay, even I am recognized. I have a, because see, when you go for a job, if you are only a 10th, if someone is only a 10th pass, so how it will feel to, what have you qualified? Sir, I am only having 10th. So the other person 10th, in this day you are having only 10th or 12th. Don't you have any other skills? This is the way, so the morale goes down. See, when I am starting an interview, somebody puts my morale down by saying that, what is this? You cannot answer properly this simple question. Then the rest of the interview, you can go very sure that I am not going to be confident. Though I know all my answers, I may not tell it.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think we'll take it off. I think it's 10:40 as per my time.
Yes, sir.
You can sum up in running.
Can we take one more, sir? There is.
Yeah, we can
yes,
take
sir.
one.
But last one.
One more. Yes, sir. Rajeshwari, ma'am, you have raised your hand. Please ask your question. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am, you're audible. Please go ahead.
So recently, AICT has introduced mandatory subjects. So what is an assessment that NIT is doing?
I think I could get her first part of the question. Recently, AICT has introduced some mandatory subjects. Second part was not clear.
Mandatory subjects like essence of traditional knowledge, COI, all these subjects. For that, what is the assessment that you are all following? Assessment of these subjects, because these are non-credited subjects, no?
Okay, ma'am, directly we do not come under AICT, so we are an autonomous institute recognized under Institute of National Importance. So directly this AICT doesn't apply to us. So we are governed by our Senate, and our own Senate as well as Board of BOG decides all the things. So on academic matters it is Senate. On financial matters it is BOG, and BOG have few people from the ministry also, these IAS officers and all. So AICT is not a for at least NITs. Yes, I think we can, I think the questions are over.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Singesh sir, can we conclude now?
Ma'am?
Yeah.
Rani ma'am?
You can please.
Yes.
Yes.
I think Chawla sir wants to, he has messaged in group. I want to ask one question.
Surely, sir. Surely, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Now, for employment of teachers, what kind of qualities will be expected from them? Means there will be burden on employer, burden on recruitment agencies to select proper teachers, because everything has to be executed through teachers. My question is clear?
No, sir. Actually, I am not able to get your, means the audio is.
Okay. Right. Again, now I'm audible to you.
Yeah. Now you're audible, sir. Yeah.
See, now NEP has to be implemented, and through teachers it will be implemented. So certainly the quality of teachers may be different one now. So those who have already have been recruited, you can't change, but new generation of teachers may be expected to carry few inherent qualities with them. How those things will be tested by recruitment agencies? Because you have
So I think he's asking that what will be the employability skills which teacher will need for the recruitment, for the new recruitment.
Okay, employability. Okay, I get it. So what are the skills required for an employability of a teacher? See, if I am in the selection committee, I will say compassion. Okay, so skills, see, how would you shortlist, generally how a teacher is shortlisted for an interview based on these certificates? So when we call for teacher application, faculty application, we never have met that person, right? So we would have only seen the application. What does the application say? The application says 10, 12, then you have engineering, whatever, diploma, engineering, MTech, PhD, whatever is the qualification requirement. You have everything. Then you have the set of marks. Then you have the category that OBC, SC, ST, general, you have all this. You shortlist based on these criteria. So technically you are shortlisting all these people based on the criteria which has been set up by the government. You cannot violate that. So if you violate, then it becomes a matter of concern, because if somebody goes to court, right? So one shortlists, and once an interview stage comes, so we check for employability of teachers. We check two things: basic knowledge of technical things. If it's a technical post, whether basic knowledge is there or not. Then we check the HR skills, what kind of person this person would be. So if we ask, so we are, see, I at least am trained in terms of asking questions. I can just read your mind. If somebody is in front of me and talking to me, I can just finish In 5 minutes, I can do the reading of the mind, and I can say this person is like this, right? So we try to ask few questions. I think it is recommended whenever employability is there, ask and see the questions whether that person is compassionate in the sense that whether inclusive or not. If the person is not inclusive and compassionate, then no matter whatever good the technical skills are, so he or she finally will be a bad faculty. Okay, you should see whether they boast about themselves, or they keep the institute first and then talk about themselves. So those things we generally notice. And employability is for anybody becoming a teacher. Please understand that you should come under in teaching if you are really passionate about your students. So if you're not passionate about your job, about your teaching, about the way you are trying to convey your message, then I think teaching is a bad field for you, for someone. So only people who are passionate about coming to this, making people learn, talking to them, understanding them, those are the only people should come into teaching.
Thank you, sir.
Along with the checking of certificates, testimonials, some method must be devised to read his mindset, whether he will be able to justify his position or not. Because what we find, there is misfit kind of cases, they are large in number. And that affects a lot to the students and to the community. And in that way, it will not be possible to implement NEP effectively. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can also understand what Chawla sir is saying, because he's an administrator at the position of a principal, because he would be very concerned about faculty recruitment, teacher recruitment, or his staff recruitment, because one right recruitment generally drives your institute for 10-15 years. So maybe Chawla sir is getting retired later, but the faculty or the staff that he recruits today will be there for 20 to 30 years. One wrong recruitment, the institute will suffer. So while recruiting, one should always see that one recruits the right, maybe technically, see, I'll give little bit less marks for the technicalities. If technically that person is little bit down also, it's still okay for me. But having a technically very sound, very high person, at the same time not a good human being, I won't accept him in a job.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. And I thank all the participants for their active participation. And I extend my gratitude to the resource person, Dr. Manish Okhade, sir, for sharing his graceful words with us today in today's session. Thank you for being part of this program. We are overwhelmed with your presence, and it's an honor to have such dynamic personality among us. I extend my gratitude for sharing your graceful words with us. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. I think last moment I'll just say one more thing. So I thank you all, as well Madam Indrani, for your talk, as well as introducing me very nicely, and Chawla sir especially, because he's always been in touch via his means any activities he does, he involves NIT Rourkela. So whether I am involved or not, it doesn't matter. It matters as far as my institute is involved. So Chawla sir has always been there for us. I always discuss with our faculty coordinator CR Patra, and he always says, no, he is a very good administrator. So that's what he says about Chawla sir. And Sanjay sir and Agarwal sir, all of them are really very supportive that they are having me. Last but not the least, my slides, I will give it to the GEC people. It is shareable and it is equitable. That's what I am saying, that you can use it anywhere without my permission. Right, so I'm giving it to you. It's taken from this document, but it is prepared by me, but you can take it. So I will email that later, so you can share it with anybody. So my details are there on the website. You have anything, or I'm talking about the participants, you have anything, always feel free to drop me an email. Email is the best mode of communication with me. So with this, I think I thank and I wish all of you a good time over the next I think 5-6 days are there over this workshop. And I think there are far more renowned people than me. So I just saw the list, either they are vice chancellor or chancellor or coming from very big universities. So I thank you for having such a small person like me on this show. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm leaving the bye-bye.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Okhade sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Manish.
Thank you.